Hello and welcome to another Drive-In Double Feature. I'm Ryan.
I'm Nathan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into anything, we have a Patreon over at patreon.com/Drive-In-Double-Feature-Podcast. Just a couple of fun games, quizzes, conversations between Nathan and myself that we're giving as extra content to you patrons out there as a thank you for supporting the show. So if you want to check this out, go check it out over there on Patreon. But don't worry, it does not affect any regular content. But continuing our Anime Week series on this Thursday is going to be 1979's The Castle of Cagliostro, which is a part of the Lupin the Third series, which is directed by Hayao Miyazaki. What? On Drive and Double Feature?
The one and only time we'll probably ever watch one of his movies on here.
Probably.
Yes.
This is his very first feature-length film that he is directing, and it is a part of the Lupin the Third series. And honestly, I can see the blueprints for some of his later movies. I mean, I know you haven't seen all of them, but some of his other stuff like Castle in the Sky or Howl's Moving Castle, it definitely makes sense going into this type of thing. But one thing I did want to ask you before you get into anything at all, because I'm a watcher of the series. This is not my first Lupin the Third movie or whatever, because I did watch some of the TV series and a couple of the other movies, but what has been your experience with Lupin the Third?
I know of Lupin the Third, and I've seen a few episodes when I was very, very young, back when it used to play. It used to play on Adult Swim, right?
Yeah, it was part of like that Saturday night, like midnight or whatever.
Yeah, and from what I remember, I may have watched it a few times at friends' house, but I haven't seen it. I did want to watch like some of the first series for this podcast. Unfortunately, I have no time. So I wasn't able to get the time to do that. So this is pretty much a fresh experience with barely any knowledge.
Because I had forgotten, like, oh, they're just talking about some of these characters, like, oh, like you're supposed to know who these people are a lot of times, but it's very easy though, I think, to pick up on who they are.
I honestly was not lost in this movie, and I liked that there was no explanations. I actually really liked how quickly this movie started up, how it kicked off. So I mean, like, I guess just based off of that, if you've never watched Lupin the Third and you have interest in this, very easy to get into.
I will say though, this movie is actually pretty different to how the rest of the series is.
It is? Oh, okay.
And the other versions, so it's about Lupin the Third, which Lupin the Third is actually based off of a French character, Arsenic Lupin, which is actually part of like a French novel series, which is about a master thief. But back in the day, towards the 60s, Japanese pretty much didn't care about copyright laws. So they're just like, oh, let's just make that character, but he's set in Japan and he's a master thief and everything. So that's how Lupin came in to be. Started out as a manga character. He got his own TV series back in the 70s. But like I said, very different. Lupin is actually very cocky, very womanizing, like super pervy in some episodes there's a woman character named Fujiko who is in this one, and she's very much like wearing like really skimpy outfits and playing up the like I'm super sexy type of role, But so it's really kind of funny. So that's why I can kind of see how this one's so different, and I can definitely feel Hayao Miyazaki's influence, because Hayao Miyazaki had never really made a movie where it's like super pervy, like adult themed characters. It's very much like hero versus a great villain type of character.
Yeah, I definitely did not get that vibe off of this. I mean, you could maybe tell that he's a little cocky, I guess, but yeah, there's no perviness really. It's actually a really sincere and nice story.
Well, yeah, if you read like, because at this point Lupin's been out, like the TV series has been out for about a couple of years at this point. As a character though, he's been around for about 10 years at this point. And when he says like he even says like, oh, I used to be a big womanizer, but I'm not really anymore, type of thing. He actually does say that at some point in the movie, and and just basically saying he's grown up a lot. So I guess Hayao Miyazaki was kind of pushing this one agenda, maybe like, oh well, he's a grown up now. He's not that guy anymore. But don't worry though, he goes back to those movies very quickly.
I was gonna say, yeah. And then we got the wonderful 3D CGI Netflix Lupin the Third many years later.
There's the CGI movie, and there is actually a live action version of this of Lupin, which actually came before this movie.
Oh, that's really cool. I think that's really neat. That would be one to talk about.
And this actually isn't his first feature-length animated movie either.
Yeah, I saw that. This is the second, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And like I said, if you go back and rewatch that, it's like this one you could definitely show like the whole family type of thing. There's really nothing in here that's too bad, I would say. But that one, a lot of nudity. There's some sex jokes in there. So
that's
definitely not one to show the kids to. But anyway, putting all that aside, this movie, like I said, is about Lupin the Third, who is a master thief. And the movie starts out right away. They just pulled off this big heist between Lupin and Jigen, who is his gunman of the group. He's the master at the gun. They break out and they're like, let's get out of here.
All I can say is screw you, Quentin Tarantino. Lupin did it first. The movie takes place after the robbery. Okay. But no, but no, I really liked it. I like that it starts off literally them going down the rope with all the money. Like, all right, we're out of here. It really starts off with a bang. And I think that's the movie's momentum for the rest of the runtime. This movie hardly stops. And when it slows down, it's usually a quick slowdown and then right back to action. It's always going, it's always doing something.
And that's very much how the show is, if you haven't seen it, in terms of pacing. It's very much like, okay, we're coming out of this last adventure. This other adventures are happening as soon as the episode's over. Let's just jump right into the next adventure. Like it's like this big continual, like it's like a nonstop adventure type of story. So it very much has that same tone compared to the TV series. Lupin's got a green jacket on in this one. He's always known for the red one. He's had other jacket colors, but I'd say the red is the most one. But that green jacket was actually a callback to his original manga roots.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, interesting. I like that. So one thing that I do like is that after they take all this money, you think it's good. They're driving on the interstate, him and his buddy, and then Lupin's just very quickly he just goes, "Oh, this is all counterfeit." Just like, yep, this is all fake money. And they just dump it out on the freeway for everybody to get.
That's one iteration I do like. And Lupin's kind of like this in the TV series too, is that he's always like he had this brilliant mind. He pretty much could just see like whatever's going to happen, like before it even happens type of thing. And like you said, he sees immediately the money is counterfeit. And I'm like, all right, let's just dump it. And they're like, oh, what do you want to do now? I was like, well, let's just find out where that money came from. And they're like, all right, time to start that adventure now.
Yep. And then we get that beautiful title sequence. This is definitely where Miyazaki definitely shined through. The environments are really beautiful, and the opening theme is really nice. Actually, all of that. Why are anime movie soundtracks so good? Because this one is really good too. This one's like a jazzy affair. It's really nice. I liked it.
Yeah, that's a lot how a lot of Lupin movies go, and like the TV series, it's got like a jazz type of mix to it. It's very cool, like a very cool atmosphere where like everyone always has on these really trendy outfits, and everyone always just looks so incredibly stylish.
Yeah.
And everybody smokes constantly. There's so many cigarette smoking scenes in this movie.
Hey, that's okay. It's pretty cool. I like it. Smoking's cool.
Yeah.
Said
Nathan Combs.
Yeah, said Nathan Combs. I said it right here, a non-smoker.
But I immediately goes right into it. Like you said, after the title sequence, they're just like, there's a woman being chased by this gang of thugs, and they're like, oh, let's go after her. And just no particular reason. Just like, oh, that looks fun. Let's go be a part of that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, oh, she's just being chased down. Let's go save her. And it's a bride. And yeah, it just leads to a big car chase action sequence. It, it's fun. It reminds me a lot of a spy movie because there's like one section where her car falls off the edge and Lupin grabs her with a tool belt that's a grappling hook that attaches to a branch, and it's like a little crank on it that he like cranks in order to get his way down. But it's like the world's smallest crank, so it's like a very tiny motion. It's very silly, but it's all animated really well. I think the action's done it's very fun. I'll say that it's very lively.
Yeah, this movie is very colorful. I mean, just the colors are so bright and energetic looking. I mean, even like the night scenes, like there's no real muted colors. Like it's like the night scenes look beautiful, like on the castle walls. It's like these like green and like blues mixed together.
Mm-hmm.
It looks really good. I mean, that's one thing that I'm automatically drawn to is the animation. I mean, I do like appreciate what we saw on Tuesday with which is mind-blowing animation that looks like took probably years to draw.
Mm-hmm.
But in this one, I do appreciate the more cartoonier type of atmosphere to it.
Yeah, no, it all looks really nice. I feel like the Miyazaki production also has its own style that's very like beautiful. And what I could tell from this one, at least from what I can see as someone who doesn't know these characters a lot, you can tell which characters are Miyazaki creations and which ones are from the show. Like Lupin looks like Lupin from what I've seen, but all the women in this look like women in Miyazaki movies. I don't know. There's like a little bit of a difference. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I just thought it was interesting. Like his touch, you could tell, or at least I could tell what characters were his doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's some where like the castle stuff and the Count, that's all Miyazaki.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like getting into some of his later movies, a lot of his antagonists look like the Count does in this one.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't surprise me at all. And the main girl, the girl that's being the bride that was kidnapped and she's away and hidden in the castle. I mean, that she straight up looks like a lot of the girls in some Miyazaki movies. And again, because you could see like the difference, like I was saying before, like Fujiko, she has like got these bigger breasts and everything. The total looks like an anime girl. And like I said, the other girl, she looks like a sweet innocent girl. So it's a very big difference.
Exactly, like just some nice girl that just loves Lupin. And so this movie ends up being a giant heist movie, which I like that about it, where the setting is a castle and Lupin and his buddy go on a quest to kind of break into the castle because the bride gives them a ring. And I really love one scene where they're sneaking in through one of the waterways, and Lupin gets caught in the waterfall. I've never seen this done before, but he swims up the waterfall, like he falls down and then he swims up the waterfall. I thought that was
like a salmon. He's just trying to swim upstream.
Exactly. I thought that was a funny bit.
I did like though that like the water that he fell into actually led into a separate fountain. So it was like a gargoyle or maybe like a lion looking thing. I can't remember exactly, but it had like a big mouth in there. He was just able to fall out. And there's a cop who is in this one, Zingata, and he's also in the Lupin the TV series. He's kind of like the Elmer Fudd to the Bugs Bunny, whatever you want to say, where he's always chasing Lupin, like, I'm going to get you, Lupin, and arrest you for good type of thing. So he's there. He's there for the party.
Yeah, and he's a good character. I actually really enjoyed that character because, it's the classic, like, he hates him so much, but they end up having to work together and they end up, like, colluding, even though how much he doesn't want it for the greater good, to kind of work against this guy who's counterfeiting all of this money, every dollar bill, peso, whatever it is out there.
Yeah, I mean that's usually like the relationship between them, that there is a mutual respect between these two characters. Even though Lupin's trying to always outsmart him, Lupin kind of admires that he never gives up the whole process, even though he knows he's probably never going to catch him. And then the detective, he's always admiring Lupin because, you know, he is so smart and he's able to get away each time, no matter how much he gets cornered.
Yeah. And this castle is so filled with traps. It's funny. It reminds me, it really does. And I'm saying this because I did some research after and it makes sense. It feels like a video game. It reminds me a lot of Dragon's Lair, where it's almost like he would go into a room, there'd be a trap, and then you'd have to find a way around it. What's funny is the first time this came to America was in video game form, like Dragon's Lair. It actually had a Laserdisc game that was only 40 minutes of footage. It was cut in with the first movie too. And yeah, there's a video game of this before the movie even came here, which is really interesting. Yeah.
Didn't I read somewhere that like, what isn't the game version in, because there was like, it was in an actual arcade machine, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Didn't I read somewhere like that was like the game, like you could see it in the Goonies or something?
Really? You know what? We might have to watch the Goonies and check that out because that's pretty cool.
Yeah, might have to. Because there was always this big, I guess, false rumor or whatever that Steven Spielberg like really loved this movie.
Really? I could see it.
But there is no like confirmed thing about it, because this movie actually did play at Cannes.
Yes, yeah. It had some play. I know, I was reading into that.
But there really is no evidence that Steven Spielberg has seen it, other than I guess Data uses the same grappling hook in the Goonies too, is what I read.
Okay.
Who knows? But anyway, getting off of that, it, like you said, there's all kinds of traps in here. Lupin finally does get to the girl, and he plays like this real noble type of character where he goes in and he's like, oh, like, I'm the master thief, let me steal you away. And she's really into it. She's like, oh yeah, you know, please take me away. And you actually do find out that Lupin and this girl do have some history together, because I guess Lupin had forgotten it at one point.
I guess, yeah.
And because Lupin actually gets shot in this movie and he's about to die, and the girl sacrifices and's like, all right, Count, I'll marry you, just let Lupin live. And Lupin's able to get away, and he kind of, after he gets shot, he kind of remembers that he had tried to sneak in that castle earlier. But the only thing I thought was a little weird about that part is she was like a little girl when that happened, and he didn't look any different.
Yeah, I thought that was a little odd too.
And it was 10 years had passed since then, so hopefully, you know, she's 18, 19.
Yeah, she was at least 8 that first time, hopefully.
But
I mean,
he never really does anything with her. Even at the end of the movie, he kind of gently pushes down her advances, so it's not like he takes advantage of her in any way.
Yeah, he's just the nice guy that saved her. You know, that's kind of like what he's going for. He just wants to steal away this girl who's getting forced into a marriage. It's a very noble cause. But what I like about it is about this, he's kind of like one of those detectives that's just so lucky that everything goes his way almost. Because to get to that tower, he like tries to grapple over and it keeps failing, right? Like he keeps like missing and all that, but he eventually just stumbles his way into the right place. It's like a bumbling, like somehow this guy just gets it every time.
Well, he's like a perfect character, because he like, when he's trying to grapple, he ends up accidentally like stumbling, and he starts trying to run down the roof to kind of stop his momentum, but he can't stop running. So he just uses that momentum. He just leaps across from tower to tower. So he's like a video game character. No, so it kind of shows like he just kind of stumbles his way into a lot of this stuff, and it just kind of works out in the end. Because even towards like the later part, where he has like these super intricate plans, where it's like, oh, like spoilers, when the wedding happens and he's trying to interrupt it, he comes in, he makes like a fake Lupin dummy that they think it's him. They stab it to death, but apparently he was actually the priest the whole time, and he rips off the mask.
Love that. I wasn't expecting that, I can tell you that.
No, So that it's like, oh yeah, well, of course, this whole plan that easily could have fallen apart at any second, it all came together just fine. No hiccups at all.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of how the end of the movie works, with this crazy fight in a clock tower where the bad guy and Lupin are fighting all over gears and like fight their way up to the top of the clock tower. It reminded me of The Great Mouse Detective. I would not be surprised if The Great Mouse Detective like borrowed their ending from this movie, because it ends very similarly.
You know what this one reminded me of?
What?
It reminded me of Shanghai Nights.
Oh boy, the superior.
Well, yeah, because they do fight on the Big Ben Tower.
You're right. That is funny.
And they do fight in a bunch of gears and clocks. So
yeah, wow. Okay, so wow, Shanghai Nights ripped off of this movie. Everything's ripping off of this.
I mean, if you're gonna rip off from a good movie at least. But
that is true. And I guess we are in spoiler territory, but the death, I really like how they do the death of the bad guy at the end here, where the clock tower's working and it crushes him, but you don't see it, but you hear the snap sound of his body being crushed. It's cool.
When the second and the hour hand come together at striking at midnight, he kind of gets caught in between the two hands, like you said, and just gets totally squished. We could just go by scene.
We could.
But I really do like the energy this movie has. It's a very chaotic type of fast-paced energy that, again, like the character is not supposed to be taken very seriously. He's kind of a goofball, and it always ends up working out in his favor. But like I said, true fans of the series, which I've seen some episodes, I'm not like a huge dedicated fan. They do not like this one as much as the other one, because it's so different from Lupin's like regular personality. But to me, this one's really well made, and I've actually seen probably 4 or 5 of them, and this by far is the best one out of the ones I've seen, in my opinion. So
gotcha.
But then again, this is not the first time I've seen this, and this was actually my first exposure to Lupin.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I guess from my perspective as a first-time watcher, I think it's a pretty cool introduction to the series. And I mean, obviously, it got you into the series, so it definitely, I finished it and was like, cool, I want to check out this character. So yeah, it's a neat movie.
Yeah, there's definitely some avenues. Like if you have Crunchyroll, you can go watch it right now.
I do not have Crunchyroll.
What? I'm borrowing your Crunchyroll account, Nathan. What are you talking about?
Who bought Crunchyroll on my debit card?
I did.
Oh, gotcha. You took my card and bought Crunchyroll. Well, we might as well just do all anime. So
it's an exclusively anime podcast. It's going to get great numbers, trust me.
Okay, we'll see.
But yeah, to me, it's not Hayao Miyazaki's best work, but it's a great start for him.
It is. It's funny you say that, because for a lot of directors, this could possibly be their best, because it is a really good movie. It's very fun. But for Miyazaki, at the end of the day, it's like, oh, it's one of his lesser works, and it's still really good.
It's funny when you say that. I mean, there's definitely some moments where the animation in this movie is not super expensive looking. I mean, it's some of it's pretty cheap. Like sometimes, like the faces are not super detailed, or the lip movements don't match up exactly to what they're saying.
Yeah.
Even in their native tongue. By the way, did you watch any of the English dub for this at all?
No, just the Japanese dub. Or I guess not a dub, the Japanese version.
I watched about the first 20 minutes of the English dub, and it's not bad, but I definitely prefer the Japanese version.
Yeah, the reason I went for the Japanese version, I just looked it up, and it looked like fans of the movies didn't really like the English dub, so I was like, okay, I'll just check out the Japanese one. Like
one that always Jigen, he doesn't have he's got like a super light voice in the English one, and in the Japanese one, he sounds very gruff, like a hardened type of guy.
I couldn't imagine that character with a light voice. It wouldn't work.
He's like, "Hey, boss."
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so I much prefer that one. But like I said, even if you're not a fan of the series, I still recommend it because it's got a nice fun plot. I mean, like I said before, it's not very hard to figure out who these people are and what their roles are. So it's a very easy one to get into.
Yeah, totally agree.
But I guess that's it for anime week. But Nathan, what are we going to be talking about next time?
So for next week, we're actually going from the big screen down to the little screen. And you know what?
Who would want to see that? Said no one ever.
Said no one ever. Yeah, I know. But we are talking about TV. We decided to change it up a little bit, but we're talking about some classic TV series. On Tuesday, we're going to be talking about one of my favorites, and that's The Twilight Zone, the original series. And just for context, it's going to be 3 episodes, and that's going to be Nothing in the Dark, The Monsters Are Due at Maple Street, and 5 characters in search of an exit. If you wanted to watch these before they came on, they are all streaming over at Pluto TV.
Sounds good. Can't wait. I'm going to go pick up a TV guide right now.
Let me TiVo that real quick.
But anyway, if you have any thoughts, opinions of this episode, please let us know at driveindoublefeaturepodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at DIDFpod. And once again, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/driveindoublefeaturepodcast. But until next time.
Until next time.
Koya o sasura